When a homeless man approached Donald Trump asking for just 50 cents, no one expected what would happen next. This simple encounter would ignite a national movement, mend a fractured family, and alter destinies in ways no one could have predicted. The city buzzed with activity, traffic roared, people rushed through the streets, and voices mingled in the air. On the corner of Main Street and Fifth Avenue in Seattle, Washington, a man huddled against the wall of a closed bookstore. His clothes were tattered, insufficient against the chill of the autumn evening. Next to him lay a sign that read, "Any help appreciated. Bless you." His name was Eli. At 38, he had been homeless for over 2 years, the victim of a series of unfortunate events that had left him destitute. Each day was a roll of the dice. Sometimes a kind soul would drop a coin or two, but most often people would walk by, eyes averted. Eli pulled his ragged jacket tighter around him, observing the parade of shoes, boots, sandals, elegant pumps. Then something caught his attention. A pair of luxurious leather shoes paused right in front of him. They were the kind that screamed wealth and power. Eli looked up. His interest sparked. There stood Donald Trump, the former president, his presence as commanding as ever, his famous blonde hair visible even under a stylish overcoat. What was he doing here in this part of town, Eli wondered, his heart skipping a beat. Trump was momentarily lost in thought, his hands deep in his coat pockets. He had come to Seattle for a business meeting, but found himself drawn to the street's vibrancy. Eli hesitated but was emboldened by Trump's seeming openness. He wasn't hurrying like everyone else. He seemed to be absorbing the city's rhythm. Summoning his courage, Eli spoke, his voice raspy with cold. "Excuse me, sir. Could you spare 50 cents? Trump's gaze shifted to meet Eli's. The moment stretched, the world around them blurring. Eli prepared for dismissal, something he was all too familiar with, but the response was anything but typical. "For what purpose?" Trump inquired, his voice steady but curious. There was no disdain in his question, just genuine interest. Eli felt his throat tighten, not expecting a dialogue. "For a hot meal, maybe," he managed, his voice shaking slightly. He wasn't used to explaining himself, but there was something compelling about Trump's demeanor. Trump stepped closer, his height more imposing up close. The crowd around them began to notice, their whispers growing louder. Eli felt exposed, but Trump's eyes kept him anchored. "What's your name?" Trump asked. "Eli," he answered, barely audible. Trump nodded as if filing the name away. Then from his coat, he pulled out something that made Eli's eyes widen. Not coins, but a crisp $100 bill. "Here," Trump said, offering the note. "This should do more than just buy food." Eli was speechless, his hands trembling as he took the money. "Why?" was all he could muster. "Because I can," Trump replied simply, but he didn't stop there. "But there's one condition." Eli looked up, curiosity mixed with apprehension. "What's that?" Trump's tone softened. "If I give you this today, you must help yourself tomorrow. Agree?" The words struck Eli deeply. It was more than charity. It was a challenge. He nodded, finding no words. "Good," Trump confirmed, then wrote something on a card and handed it to Eli. "Go here tomorrow. They'll assist you. Tell them Donald sent you." The card revealed the address of a local aid organization, one Eli knew by name, but had never approached. Trump ensured they'd be expecting him, promising this was Eli's moment to change his path. As Trump walked away, blending into the crowd, Eli stood with the money in the card, feeling a new unfamiliar sensation, hope. The following day, Eli approached the building on Pine Street, its sign reading Community Renewal Services. He walked in, his life about to take a turn that would not only change his own story, but inspire a wave of compassion across the country. Inside, Eli was greeted by a warm smile from a volunteer named Sarah. She knew of his coming, thanks to Trump's call, and was ready to assist. Over the next few weeks, Eli worked with the center, receiving not just food and shelter, but also job training and counseling. He learned how to manage his finances, deal with his past trauma, and slowly rebuild his life. Meanwhile, the video of Trump's interaction with Eli had gone viral. Social media platforms buzzed with comments, some criticizing, others praising, but all acknowledging the unexpected act of kindness. Inspired by this, a new hashtag number sign, small act, big impact, began trending, encouraging people to perform random acts of kindness in their communities. Back in Seattle, Eli's story took another turn. One evening, while attending a community dinner at the center, he met a woman named Maria. She was there volunteering, driven by the viral video to make a difference. As they talked, Eli realized she looked familiar. Maria's eyes widened. She recognized him too. They were distant cousins, separated by years and circumstances, but now reunited by this serendipitous event. Maria had been searching for family members after losing touch years ago due to Eli's struggles. Their reunion was tearful and joyous, mending years of separation. With Maria's support, Eli found not only a family, but also a new purpose. He began volunteering at the center, sharing his story to inspire others. The impact didn't stop there. Across the U.S., the movement spurred by Trump's gesture led to increased donations to shelters and community programs. Celebrities and influencers joined in, using their platforms to highlight local charities. And even small towns started their own initiatives, fostering a culture of giving. Years later, when Eli stood at the opening of a new community center named after him, the Eli Hope Center, he looked out at the crowd. Among them was Donald Trump, who had returned to see the fruits of that fateful day. Sometimes, Eli began his speech, a small act can lead to a big impact. But it's not just about the act itself. It's about believing in someone when they've lost faith in themselves. As applause echoed around the room, Trump nodded, a small smile on his face, perhaps reflecting on how one moment could indeed change lives forever. The legacy of that day on the corner of Main Street and Fifth Avenue continued to grow, proving that from the smallest seed of kindness, great things can flourish. Eli, now a recognized figure in community service, had more stories to tell. He used his experience to write a book titled From the Corner to Community, which became a bestseller. The proceeds from his book went back into funding community projects, particularly those aimed at tackling homelessness. The narrative of Eli's life transformation didn't end with the center's opening. He became a speaker, traveling across the country, sharing his journey at schools, corporate events, and conferences. His message was always clear. Every person has the potential for greatness, even when they feel at their lowest. One day, Eli received an invitation to speak at a national conference on social change in Washington, D.C. It was there that he met other individuals whose lives had been similarly altered by acts of kindness, some small, others monumental. Together, they formed the Ripple Effect, a foundation dedicated to fostering small acts of kindness that could ripple out into significant changes in communities. The foundation's first major project was the Kindness Challenge, where individuals were encouraged to perform one act of kindness each day for a month. The results were astonishing. Stories of lives changed, relationships healed, and communities strengthened, filled social media, news outlets, and even inspired legislation aimed at supporting grassroots community initiatives. Eli's work brought him back to Seattle, where he continued to live modestly, now with Maria, who had become his closest ally and partner. They expanded the Eli Hope Center, adding programs for education, vocational training, and mental health support, making it a beacon of hope not just for the homeless, but for anyone needing a second chance. Years down the line, as Eli grew older, he looked back on that chilly afternoon when a simple request for 50 cents led to a lifetime of service and change. His story, now part of American folklore, was taught in schools as an example of how personal transformation could lead to societal change. On one particular autumn day, much like the one that had changed his life, Eli stood again on the corner of Main Street and Fifth Avenue. But this time, he was there to unveil a statue commemorating the moment that sparked so much. The statue, titled The Meeting, showed two figures, one kneeling, the other standing, their hands touching, symbolizing the connection between giving and receiving. As he pulled the sheet off the statue, Eli whispered to himself, "This is where it all began." Around him, a crowd of people, some who had been helped by his initiatives, others who had contributed to the movement, all stood in silent gratitude. The city, once just a backdrop to his struggle, now celebrated him, not as a man who was once homeless, but as a symbol of hope, humanity, and the power of a single compassionate act. Subscribe to Drama Stories for more fictional stories like this.